All right, everybody, welcome. LiveTime with Alec, leadership series, first one of the year, 2021. Woo! We're going to talk about first into the breach. Man, this is going to be an exciting conversation. But if you're not in leadership, don't worry. Let's start with the basics here. Leadership is not based on position. All right, Simon Sinek said that authority isn't leadership. And I have a question for loan officers, and this is going to apply to managers. Are you leading your customers? Think about it really quickly before we kick the intro off and talk about it. There are customers that are leading you, and there are times that you lead your customers. How often is that happening? Meaning, is the customer demanding the LE, orchestrating the process, explaining to you how it's going to be, or are you the leader with them? Let's talk about what it means to be first into the breach on this episode of LiveTime with Alec. All right, friends. So first, we have to start with a story because that's just how the world works. All right. So first into the breach. What am I talking about? Some of you might know what that means, but let's go on the nerdy side and just kind of unpack something. Do you remember watching Lord of the Rings? And of course you do. If you didn't, you're under a rock. Everyone remembers Lord of the Rings. It was a huge movie, and it was also books. It was books. But do you remember the Battle of Helm's Deep? And I'll frame this up for you, and then you'll understand why we're talking about first into the breach. First, let me know if where you're hanging out from. Just throw me a comment. Thank you guys for joining me today. And if you're watching this in the future, hit me up with a hashtag bypassed. I always get happy knowing you spent just 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute just checking in. So Helm's Deep, the Battle of Helm's Deep, the King Theoden and Aragorn, they're surrounded by orcs. It's over, that they're getting besieged on all fronts. And Aragorn turns to the king and he says, "Ride out with me." Right? Like, it's the end. The orcs are breaking through, ride out with me. And a breach happens. They bust through a wall, a door with a battering ram, and Aragorn and King Theoden mount the horses and they ride out directly into the horde, leading the troops. Right? And at the same time, you have Gandalf showing up. He's on the top of the hill and he's riding down with the rest of the army on horseback. And of course, Gandalf and the prince, they're leading the charge. Right? So you watch movies like this, or you hear stories about warriors who go into battle and risk their lives to do insane things. And these are the leaders, right? These people you're following. They're not in the back. They're not in the back being like, "Hey, go charge, do stuff. I'm going to stay over here." And so we get inspired by that. We want leaders that lead from the front. But what does that really mean? Okay, so I've been reading a lot of Simon Sinek lately and watching a lot of his videos, and he talks about in his thing, Leaders Eat Last, and his podcast and his TED Talks and all this stuff, that leaders create safety. Now, I want to talk about that first because he ties safety and self-sacrifice into the core competencies of leaders that win. And by the way, like I said in the beginning of this, leadership is not based on position. Okay? We know people, you as a loan professional are a leader to your customers, or at least you should be. You're explaining the situation. You're owning the ground. You are defining the terms of the engagement. You're the authority on the process. So, of course, you're the natural leader, right? The customer doesn't know what's going on. You have to lead them through it. And when you look up at the top at branch managers, regional managers, corporate executives, CEOs, one of the things Simon says that I agree with, that leaders create safety. But what does safety mean? Safety means, as a leader, you provide the space for your people to be great and to take risk. All right. So if you're in sales today, you understand sales is risky. There's risk. You are putting yourself into a position of vulnerability. Hopefully, often the great salespeople are doing it all the time, because in that position of vulnerability, you're out there trying to build a new relationship, risking rejection, and leaders create a place of safety. So let me break down something here that's helpful, right? In our frame of COVID land, one of the things that has been self-evident, that I've talked about a million times, that you probably heard a million times, there's a new medium of communication that is new to us, but not new to the world, and that's video. And we're forced into it through our Zoom calls, right? Or Microsoft Teams, or whatever it is. A leader's job in that environment is to help their employees feel safe on the videos. So maybe that means some coaching. Maybe that means some help. Maybe that means some tactical stuff like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, maybe that means buying a camera for somebody with your own money. Maybe that means spending time to help them set it up and push the buttons and learn camera angles and turn it on and encourage someone to put light on their face. Maybe safety means you go in first. You show that the water is safe. You play first. And so often I see leaders who are really great, and I should call them managers, who are really great at saying, hey, go do this. Do as I say, not as I do. I don't think that's successful leadership. I don't think that's being first into the breach. I don't think that's creating a space of safety by just commanding that somebody else do something that you're not willing to do. Now, I understand that a lot of managers in mortgage have earned their stripes. Man, they spent the years doing it, didn't they? They worked hard. They can look back at all their previous successes and look at my plaques from 2002. But that doesn't do anything for what's happening right now to create safety. For example, role playing in sales is like one of the best tried and true methods of helping salespeople become better. It's also one of the things we avoid like the plague. I mean, hit me on this. Like, tell me how excited you'd be if me or your boss came in tomorrow and was like, all right, we're going to role play today, right now. I'm going to ask some questions as if I'm a customer. You're going to answer them as a loan officer. Or I'm going to ask questions like, I'm going to be a realtor. You come sell me. Come. You'd be terrified. How many right now would be like, no, thank you. None of that. I don't want. So here's my question. Let's say that this happens and we're going to role play and we're going to do it and we're going to try to get better and we're going to lean into some questions and we're going to do it on video and we're going to record it. Who goes first? Who puts themselves in the position of uncomfortableness first? Is the manager saying, okay, I'm the realtor, go? Or is the leader saying, all right, you be the customer. You come at me with why my rate's too high. And let's start with that. You got a better rate quote from the internet. Come to me, ask me some questions. These are stupid, simple things. You know, leading through video, showing up well, encouraging others, or just role playing and who goes first. These are simple things, but they create safety and they show the microcosm of what it is to be a leader. You know, Simon goes on to talk a lot about safety, and in that he talks about firing people and how you shouldn't fire people. And this is where I start to get a little bit, I disagree, and I want to unpack this a little bit. He's talking a lot about performance management. Now, performance management's a thing, right? And I do agree with him that performance management and safety are a little bit at odds, aren't they? I mean, how can you tell me my environment's safe when you're telling me I'm not getting enough credit pulls or pre-quals or applications? How are those things in alignment? This is where I differentiate and view this. There's a little book written by a buddy of mine named Dave Hibbard called The Canoe Theory, and it's a very simple book in its elegance and how it explains teamwork, alignment, and I want to share some of the thoughts with you as I hope it helps you in your own leadership journey. First, the canoe theory's analogy is that we're all in a canoe and that we're paddling in a direction. And in order to paddle in a direction, you have to have somebody who's casting the direction. You have to have somebody who's saying, we're going here, so that the people pulling on the oars know which direction to pull. And that also means sometimes there has to be course corrections where somebody says, hey, you stop pulling, you keep pulling, so that we can realign with where we're going. And in that analogy, you can tell immediately if somebody's not pulling their weight on the team, the canoe's going to go in circles. It's not going to work very well, is it? At the same time, if somebody's pulling too much, it's not going to work. And one of the things I love in that little book is it talks about sometimes you have to pull over and let people out of the boat. You see, if you imagine us as a team and we sit down and we say, hey, here's our goal. We're going to do $100 million as a branch. Okay? $100 million. Everyone goes, yay. And then you turn around and you realize that's not everyone's priority. This person over here wants to have a little more balance of quality of life because what's going on in their family. This person over here wants to kill it and just do as much as humanly possible. And you start realizing with all these personalities and all these different levels of priority, maybe you didn't have alignment to what you were trying to achieve. And so you've got to constantly be course correcting as a leader, constantly checking in. Are we in alignment? Are we in alignment? What matters to you? What matters to you? And if someone's like, you know what, I don't want to pull that hard right now. Okay, then take a seat but I don't want to get off the boat. I don't want to be in the front, pulling like I was for the last 2 years. But I don't want to be off the boat. Then you got to reposition them, put them in the back, let them take a rest. But at the same time, if they've stopped pulling entirely, then maybe it's time for them to get off the boat. And again, sometimes leadership means you lead someone to a different path, a different boat. I do agree with a lot of things Simon says. I think he's very thoughtful on this topic. I do feel like self-sacrifice, when he gets into the analogy of parenthood, you don't just like tell your kid one day who's acting up, you know what, we're gonna part ways. We're it's not you, it's me, and you don't, right? Like it's not even in the question. Like it doesn't even come into your head that you would ever be like, you know what, this was a good try, but I'm gonna need that clawback back and farewell. Like, you don't do that. So I do recognize that leaders are in it for their people and they're willing to self-sacrifice. But I also believe that we need to have a shared vision. We need to have an alignment of goals and objectives, or else we need to help people find where they really want to go and where they really want to belong. And so when I talk about first into the breach, what I really want people to hear today, yeah, Amy, things change. People change. Look, it happens all the time. And that's why as a leader, you have to be constantly course correcting, constantly working with people, have great communication where you're saying like, hey, are we in alignment? Do you want what you said you wanted at the beginning of the year? Or do you want what this team wants, which is this direction? So it's okay. If they don't want it, it's not a problem. We view it as a problem. We frame it up like they're not good or they're not doing their job or something because we're, I don't know, simplistic creatures, but that's not really the issue. It's about alignment. So I think leaders need to do a lot better at creating safety. And here's the number one way I think they can do that. I think when I talk about first into the breach, I think about Maslow's hierarchy of loans. It's my favorite analogy. You guys, everyone knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If people aren't eating, they don't really care about your philosophy, right? You got to feed people first. Well, in mortgage, sometimes instead of feeding people, they need a loan. They need money. They need a lead, a resource. And how many managers just don't want to go get that for them? I know. That one always strikes a nerve. Sometimes I'm coaching a leader and I'm saying things like, well, go get them a loan. They're like, what? I'm like, well, right now, by the way, I know there's loans falling from the sky, but like, go get them a loan. They need a loan. I don't know what you mean. Go on a sales call for them. Book a sales appointment for them with a top producing agent. I don't know why this is so hard to understand for great leaders or people that want to be great leaders. If a loan officer is struggling and you put them on a PIP, a performance improvement plan, you say, hey, look, this is my favorite. It's absolutely drives me insane. Look, you're not performing to our team standards. So, and we talked about it. We had shared alignment. So we're going to put you on a performance improvement plan. And in that plan, you're going to go out and you're going to talk to 10 realtors a week, right? You're going to talk to 10 realtors a week. And then you're going to get me, I need to see 5 pre-quals by the end of 2 weeks or 10 credit pulls, or, we're going to take this another step further. And I sit there and I'm like, what a terrible example of leadership. What a terrible example of leadership. That's not into the breach. That's not into the dirt with your people. That's sitting back and leveraging your authority to tell them what to do, like they don't know what to do. Flip that. You matter so much to me that we're going to meet on these days this week, and we're going to make calls together. You're going to make calls to these realtors, and I'm going to make calls as your leader to these realtors to set appointments for you. And then imagine that loan officer sitting in that room, and the manager's dialing realtors. And he's watching his leader say things like, hey, I'm just reaching out, giving you a call. I pulled this data. You're amazing. We're amazing. I got one of my best loan officers sitting here. Love a chance to jump on a Zoom with you and just share some ideas. In fact, I got a Starbucks gift card I want to send you just to take the meeting because normally I take you to coffee, but I can't do that now. So I'll hook you up. Can you imagine that loan officer sitting there watching their manager call out for them, advocate on their behalf? How different is that than here's a performance improvement plan and I need you to call 10 realtors and come back with your results by Tuesday. In fact, here's a sheet you can check off who you called. So I want to say names, the numbers of who you called. How's that helpful? But a leader that would carve time from their busy day to sit down with somebody who's underperforming to make calls on their behalf with them in the room, in the dirt. That's somebody's going to follow. Yeah, Michael, I love this. And it's a great example too. You do an amazing job of this. There's a big push into social media and digital and video. And Michael, you're one of the people helping lead that thing. And so one of the things that I hear all the time is get into social media, get in there, do stuff. And then I look around, I'm like, but you're not doing it. So you as a leader need to be doing it. Because when you as a leader model this behavior, when you start getting into social media, when you start trying strategies and practicing and playing, then the people can look at you and go, okay, someone else is in the dirt. I have a great example of this. Really great manager of mine decided pre-COVID to have a video night. Instead of a call night, she was going to have all her loan officers come in. They were going to spend 15 to 20 minutes building out content strategies for like 5 to 10 videos. They brought in wardrobe changes, which is the best thing of all time. And they were going to do videos. And they're going to post these videos on social media. So instead of doing a call night, like the old school call nights, you get in there and you dial for dollars, they're going to get in there and they're going to film videos for the night. There's pizza. It was a great time. But you know what I watched when I got there? I watched the manager hold the meeting. And then I watched the manager set the tone, set the expectations. And then I watched the manager lead. I watched her go into her office, close the door, and start filming her videos. You see, it would have been very easy for her to just walk around to make sure everyone was doing what she asked. It's been very easy. Hey, how are you doing in your videos? You good? And I saw some of that. I was doing a lot of that. But I also saw her, door closed, doing her videos. Safety means you let people or you encourage people to step into their vulnerability. It's hard to do that when they don't feel safe around you or you're not being vulnerable first. You know, it's hard because leadership is such a funky topic, isn't it? And we have collapsed managers in leadership. We've collapsed somebody with authority with leadership. And I really love Simon's angle on that. You are, just because somebody's an authority, meaning they have a higher position or they're in charge, does not make them a leader. Like I started with, how many times you as a loan officer have been made the leader by your customers? I hope it's every time, because you are the leader. You are the expert. You are the professional. You need to be leading them. But as you mature and step into leadership with mortgage professionals, salespeople, even managing managers, how are you creating safety? How are you leading from the front? How are you first into the breach so that people will be willing to follow you, not just listen to you, not just do what you say, but do what you do? It's my encouragement for you guys today as you kind of lean into this. It doesn't mean you're a leader by position. You could be a loan officer in a branch and you could be leading the whole branch. It has to do with being willing to be in the dirt with the team. And so many managers have forgotten that. If you hear this today and you're in leadership, my challenge to myself every day is, how am I in the dirt with my team? How am I in the place where I'm driving loans to them? Straight up Maslow's hierarchy of loans. Yes, I can inspire. Yes, I can create videos. Yes, I can do trainings. Yes, I can have sales meetings. And then when all that's done, the vision's set, do I roll back? Done. Did my job. Or do I roll up the sleeves, get in the dirt, and start helping getting loans? First into the breach, my friends. First into the breach. Appreciate you all. See you guys on Thursday. Amazing podcast queued up. And next week, when we get into our topics, it's going to be a fun one. I'll give you a quick sneak peek what we're talking about next week. It is right here. We're going to dive down to the loan officer level, and we're going to talk about what it means to be ubiquitous in a digital world. Have a wonderful week, everybody. See you on the internet.